Deep in the remote wilds of Siberia, where winter never truly lets go and temperatures can plummet to minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit, the world transforms into a silent, frozen wasteland. The air feels sharp enough to cut, and every breath you take turns instantly into a cloud of ice. Endless snow blankets the landscape, swallowing trees, hills, and anything else brave enough to stand against the storm. On nights like these, even the toughest animals struggle to stay alive, and most creatures vanish into hiding. But right in the heart of this brutal environment sits a small, weathered wooden cabin, barely visible under layers of snow. Inside lives a lone forest ranger. He's a man used to being alone, but even he knows that tonight is different. It's dangerous in ways you can't always see. As a violent whiteout begins to pick up, the wind howls, shaking the cabin walls and rattling the windows like something is trying to break in. Snow slams against the door in heavy waves, and the temperature keeps dropping into deadly territory. Then, suddenly, through the chaos of the storm, something shifts. The ranger notices fresh tracks forming right outside his cabin. Large, deep prints pressing into the snow one by one, slowly heading toward the door. They aren't human, and they aren't something he usually sees this close. His breathing slows as he watches through the window, the storm making it nearly impossible to see. Then, through the swirling snow, a massive shadow begins to take shape. A towering figure stands just past the door, unmoving and silent, as if it's waiting, and beside it, something smaller, barely able to stand. In a place where survival is almost impossible, something unimaginable has just arrived at his doorstep. The ranger stands frozen by the window, his eyes locked on the figures outside as the storm howls louder with every passing second. In this part of Siberia, bears are feared, especially in conditions like these, when hunger and survival instincts take over. But something about this moment feels different. The massive mother bear doesn't charge. She doesn't growl or show any sign of aggression. She simply stands there, her fur matted with frost, her breath heavy and visible in the freezing air. Beside her, the cub struggles to stay upright, its small legs trembling uncontrollably before it finally collapses into the deep snow. The sight hits the ranger harder than the cold ever could. The cub's movements are weak, fading, and its breathing looks shallow, as if it's running out of time. The wind pushes harder, nearly burying them in the drifts, yet the mother doesn't leave. Instead, she lowers her head and gently nudges the cub forward, closer to the cabin door, as if guiding it toward the only place that might offer warmth. Then she lifts her gaze toward the cabin, locking eyes with the ranger through the storm-blurred window. There's no anger in her eyes, no threat, only something unexpected, urgency, and something that feels almost like trust. The ranger's heart begins to race. Every instinct tells him to stay inside, to lock the door, and to wait for the storm to pass. But what he sees outside challenges everything he knows. This isn't a predator hunting. This is a mother, standing against impossible odds, bringing her dying cub to a human doorstep. In that silent, frozen moment, the storm fades into the background, leaving behind a single, powerful question. What is he going to do next? The ranger steps back from the window, his mind racing as the storm batters the cabin walls. Every instinct tells him the same thing. Do not open that door. Out here, a single mistake can cost you everything. A full-grown mother bear, standing just a few feet away, is not something anyone would willingly approach, especially in the dead of winter when survival instincts are at their peak. His hands tighten as he looks at the door, then back toward the fading fire, then again at the shadow outside. The cub lies almost motionless now, its small body barely rising with each weak breath. Snow is already beginning to cover it. He knows the truth. If he does nothing, the cub will not survive the night. The wind howls louder, shaking the structure as if time itself is running out. He grabs a thick, worn blanket and wraps it tightly around his arms, trying to protect himself from the brutal cold waiting outside. For a moment, he stands still, listening, to the storm, to his own heartbeat, to the silence between each gust of wind. Then slowly, with controlled movements, he reaches for the door latch. The second it opens, the cold hits like a physical force, stealing the warmth from the air in an instant. Snow blasts inside, swirling across the floor. The mother bear shifts her weight, her massive frame tightening, eyes locked on him. Every step he takes toward the cub feels heavy and deliberate. He keeps his movements slow and careful, showing no threat, The distance between them closes, and now he can hear it, the faint, fragile breathing of the cub. He kneels down, his hands shaking slightly as he reaches forward. For a split second, everything seems to freeze. The storm, the wind, the world itself. The mother bear watches, unmoving. Then, gently, he lifts the cub and wraps it inside the blanket. Its body is colder than he expected, weak and barely responsive. He holds it close, shielding it from the wind as he stands back up. For a brief moment, he and the mother bear face each other. No sudden movements. No sound. Just a silent understanding passing between them. And then, slowly, he turns and walks back toward the cabin, carrying the cub inside, not knowing if he just made the bravest decision of his life or the most dangerous one. Inside the cabin, the ranger slams the door shut against the storm, sealing out the roaring wind but not the tension that follows him in. The air feels warmer, yet the cold clings to everything, the walls, the floor, and especially the small body in his arms. He moves quickly but carefully, placing the cub near the fire, just close enough to feel the heat without overwhelming it. The flames flicker weakly at first, casting long shadows across the room, as if the cabin itself is holding its breath. The cub barely reacts. Its fur is stiff with ice, its breathing shallow and uneven. The ranger kneels beside it, using his gloved hands to gently brush away the frost, careful not to move too fast. He adds more wood to the fire, feeding the flames until they grow stronger, warmer, and more alive. Slowly, the cabin begins to fill with heat, pushing back against the deadly cold that followed them inside. Minutes feel like hours. The ranger watches closely, his eyes fixed on every small movement. Then, almost imperceptibly, the cub's breathing deepens. Its chest rises a little more with each breath. A faint twitch runs through its small body. It isn't much, but it's something. Outside, through the frost-covered window, the storm continues to rage. And just beyond the swirling snow, the mother bear is still there. She hasn't moved. She stands facing the cabin, her form barely visible in the blizzard, enduring the cold, the wind, and the endless night. She waits, silent, unwavering. Back inside, the fire burns brighter now, its warmth spreading through the room. The cub shifts slightly, letting out a weak but steady breath. Life is returning, slowly, fragile but real. The ranger exhales for the first time since opening the door, but he knows this moment is only temporary, because outside, a mother is still waiting. By the time the storm begins to weaken, the night has already taken everything it could. The wind slows, the snowfall softens, and a pale light starts to rise over the frozen land. Inside the cabin, the fire still burns steadily, and the small cub now breathes with strength, its body no longer trembling the way it did before. The ranger watches it for a long moment, knowing the hardest part is still ahead. He carefully wraps the cub back in the blanket, holding it close as he walks toward the door. For a second he pauses, listening. The storm has quieted, but the cold remains just as deadly. Slowly he opens the door again. The icy air rushes in, sharp and unforgiving. Outside, the mother bear is still there. She stands exactly where she was, as if she never left, her massive form now clearer in the soft morning light. Snow covers her fur, yet she remains steady and focused. The moment she sees the ranger, her posture shifts slightly, not in aggression but in attention. Step by step, the ranger walks forward and gently places the cub onto the snow. Time seems to slow. The cub lies still for a brief second, then moves. Its small body stirs, and with unsteady steps it crawls forward, pressing itself against its mother. The mother lowers her head, softly nudging it, checking, confirming that it's alive. For a moment, the world is completely silent. Then the mother bear lifts her gaze toward the ranger. Their eyes meet. No fear, no anger, just a quiet, unspoken understanding. It lasts only a second, but it feels like something far deeper. Without a sound, she turns. The cub follows close beside her, still weak but alive. Together, they walk away into the endless white, their figures slowly fading into the distance. The snow begins to fall again, gently this time, covering their tracks as if the night itself is being erased. The ranger stands alone in the doorway, watching until there is nothing left to see. By the next morning, there is no trace of them. No footprints, no sign they were ever there. only the memory of a night when, in the harshest place on earth, trust was stronger than fear.